Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, and a very warm welcome to this high-level panel on the final day of the EBRD Annual Meeting 2024. I'm Melinda Crane, and it is a great honor to accompany you as we explore gender-smart climate finance, how it works, and why it matters. And as you know, handling the urgent and complex climate crisis requires a joined-up effort. We absolutely must draw on the skills and the ingenuity of all, and that most emphatically includes women who play an increasingly central role in our economies and our societies as investors, as small business owners, as policymakers, as managers and employees. In fact, women entrepreneurs represent one of the largest emerging markets in the world. Yet, as we were just reminded in our short film, women face numerous barriers, preventing them from fully participating in the sustainable transition, which is why we convened this panel to explore how we can better integrate gender considerations into green investments, how we can deliver greater impact by making the business and the environmental case for gender-smart climate action, and how policymakers and international partners, including the EBRD, can work together to accelerate the transition to a gender-equal, sustainable future. Those are the questions that we will be discussing here in the next hour. And we begin with a short input now from an influential decision maker who's made empowering women a central focus of her work as Egypt's Minister for International Cooperation. Her Excellency Dr. Rania Al-Mashat was hoping to join us in person, but since she is taking part in the plenary vote that is being conducted at this very moment, she sent us this video.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed global partners, it's a great honor for me to speak on a crucial aspect of our shared future that puts on the forefront one of the most important topics of our generation, the intersection of climate, finance, as well as gender. While I'm here in Yerevan, in the room next to you, unfortunately I'm unable to attend this prestigious event as I reside on the election of the next EBRD president. Nonetheless, there's an urgent need to accelerate the transition towards an inclusive green economy. Women are more disproportionately affected and more vulnerable to the effects of climate change. In general, the gender pay gap for green jobs is almost twice that for brown jobs, and the global gender gap in economic participation is stalling or even reversing in some areas. There is no doubt that climate change is the test of this generation and the challenge of this century. Throw in centuries-long societal challenges like gender inclusion, and realize that with two big obstacles come one huge opportunity. The opportunity here lies in our ability to use innovative climate financing tools to respond and advocate for general inclusion and empowerment. It is essential for the financial industry to adapt and become smarter in comprehending the intricate links between investment, gender equality, and climate change. By investing in women and empowering them to actively participate in the growing green economy, we pave the way for a sustainable future that benefits all of us. It is paramount that we recognize the immense potential that lies within women to drive innovation, implement sustainable practices, and catalyze transformation on a global scale. Therefore, we have emphasized that climate action is not gender neutral nor gender blind, and that we currently are living at a time that requires urgent momentum to amplify the voices of women and girls. Empowerment of women is an important ingredient in building climate resilience. There is a strong and mounting evidence at the country level that improving gender equality contributes to policy choices that lead to better environmental governance, whether through increased representation and voice of women within their communities, in societies at large and at political levels, or through increased labor force participation. Financing mechanisms and technological developments must reflect women's priorities and needs and ensure gender-sensitive investments in programs for adaptation, mitigation, technology transfer, and capacity building. Achieving inclusive growth starts by forming inclusive partnerships that can identify tools and methods to amplify the voices of all individuals. The focus has shifted from questioning the relevance of gender to understanding how gender can be integrated into development strategies and turned into tangible actions. This involves engaging a wide range of stakeholders in the decision-making process, including multilateral institutions, civil society, as well as the private sector. Egypt is actively participating in country-led multi-stakeholder platforms to promote gender-responsive policies. This approach aims to integrate gender considerations into policies concerning climate change, food security, science and technology, as well as recognizing gender as a crucial component for sustainable development. To ensure that women and girls have full access to their rights, national strategies are essential to push for reforms and establish the foundation of gender equality. Building on this, Egypt has taken measures to implement a sustainable development model through the development of various strategies, including our 2050 climate change strategy, the updated NDCs, Decent Life Program, the National Egyptian Family Development Program, as well as the 2030 National Strategy for Empowerment of Women in Egypt. Moreover, Egypt released its national strategy for mainstreaming gender in climate change in 2011. The strategy was designed to mainstream gender considerations into national climate change initiatives and policies so that both women and men have equal opportunities to implement mitigation as well as adaptation activities. Such strategies have been translated into projects with our development partners. In this context, I would like to highlight the Gender Equality in Climate Action, the accelerator that was launched during COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. In similar fashion, to increase women's participation, Closing the Gender Gap Accelerator was launched with the World Economic Forum, which is the first of its kind, a public-private collaborative model in Africa and the Middle East. The accelerator brings together 100 companies pledging to push the gender agenda forward and take proactive action to advance women's economic empowerment across different scales, not just institutional structures, but also norms, attitudes, and individual business commitments. Egypt's strategy to intertwine green growth with women empowerment was pushed forward through public-private partnerships, which has been recognized in 2020. The Egyptian Electricity Transmission Company won the EBRD Silver Award in the Sustainable Energy category for its pioneering steps to promote equal opportunities and green skills for women in the renewable energy sector. As we embark on this collective journey towards a sustainable future, let us commit ourselves to investing in women, supporting their leadership in the green economy, and ensuring that gender equality remains at the forefront of our climate efforts. Only by working together as a cohesive global community can we build a more resilient, inclusive, and environmentally conscious world for generations to come. At the end, thank you for your unwavering dedication to this critical cause. Together, let us forge ahead on a path towards a greener, smarter, gender-inclusive future for all. Thank you.
And we will pick up on those messages in just a minute with our panel. We're very grateful to Minister Al-Mashat for providing us with that greeting. Before I introduce our panelists, let me just tell you, dear audience, how you can participate in our session. We're very eager to hear your questions and comments. You can use our Slido event tool to do that by either photographing this barcode right here or entering the code 66837795 on slido.com and then type your question in there. Or if you raise your hand at the end of the session when I open the floor, then we will come to you with a microphone. Now it's my great pleasure to welcome our esteemed speakers, and I will keep the introductions brief so we can maximize our time for discussion. Seated next to me is Marietta Jager. She's Deputy Director General at the European Commission's Directorate General for International Partnerships, fondly known as INTPA, and she previously served as Director for Security in the EU's DG Energy and Transport. It's wonderful to have you with us, Marietta. Next to her is seated His Excellency Dr. Tariq Al Ghurg. He is CEO and Vice Chairman of the organization Dubai Cares, whose mission is to drive fulfillment of SDG 4, ensuring inclusive quality education and lifelong learning for all. And Dubai Cares is putting women at the forefront of many of its efforts, as we will shortly hear. Alex Matua is member of the Management Board and General Director at ProCredit Bank, which is based in Georgia, in the region, part of the ProCredit Group based in Germany and active in Southeastern Europe. The bank prioritizes SMEs, sustainability, and inclusion. And it's great to have you with us, Alex. And finally, representing our host on the panel is Barbara Rambusek. She's the EBRD's Director of Gender and Economic Inclusion, and she stewards the bank's approach to working with private sector investors and policymakers to address inequality. So I'd like to start by reflecting on some of the barriers to full engagement of women in the green economy, whether that's in accessing finance and services or in acquiring green skills and jobs. And Barbara, if I can start with you, help us to understand the challenges, if you would. Why do women face higher barriers when it comes to accessing finance, especially for climate-related businesses? And why is enhancing their role both good business and good climate action?
Thank you very much, Melinda, and I'm delighted to be here at this panel to talk about this very important topic. So why is it that women are more affected by climate change? I think there are a number of reasons. We've seen some of the statistics already in the short video at the start, but this year, actually, for the first time, the Food and Agriculture Organization has started to put numbers on that. Looking at women, particularly in the agribusiness sector, they looked at heat stress and how the impact of heat stress, for example, affects women-headed households compared to male-headed households. And women-headed households actually experience an 8% larger decrease in income, and that actually translates into 37 billion US dollars per year. This is a huge number. If we look at flooding, again, women-headed households experience a 3% higher loss in income due to flooding, which is 16 billion US dollars a year. And for each 1 degree in temperature rise, women-headed households experience a 34% larger decrease in their household income than male-headed households. So these are huge numbers. These things make a huge impact on the lives of women, on the lives of communities. So why is that? And again, if we look at the agricultural sector, women tend to have smaller plots of land, lower productivity, less access to irrigation, and also, very importantly, less access to finance. We still know that there is a 1.7 trillion US dollar gender finance gap for women entrepreneurs globally. So these things all, in a way, accumulate to make it harder for women to tackle the challenges that climate change brings. But at the same time, and I think this is really the important point here, is women are actually very important catalysts and agents of change, because we also know that companies that have more women in management actually invest more in green technologies and green projects. We also know that banks that have more women on their boards invest more in climate finance. And we know that parliaments that have more women as part of the MPs also pass more legislation that is climate friendly. So women make a difference, and therefore bringing women into the green economy transition, enabling women to access the green jobs, the green skills, the finance opportunities, actually is not just good business, it actually is also a way to help us globally and as a global society to tackle climate change. So this really is, I think, is where the big opportunity lies, and where, in a way, we need to start making that case more forcefully and more clearly in order to really set out that business case for investing in gender-smart climate finance.
Thank you very much. Let's now take a regional focus, and I'll go to Alex Matua, if I may. Women remain an underserved market in Georgia, where you are operating for ProCredit. What are the main challenges that you at ProCredit witness in serving women who are trying to build those climate-related businesses that Barbara just described? And what kind of products and services would you say are missing from the market? What kind of gap needs to be filled?
Thank you. Actually, as a representative of ProCredit Bank, which is the leading bank in SME and also in green finance and inclusiveness, that we are dealing with that since 15 years already. So from my perspective, if we divide it in two parts, one, the general challenges we have for gender, and the financial part, as the second part, that there are the key challenges which comes from historical perspective. There are some challenges that which the engagement in business activities is very low. If you take and look at the segment by segment, so MSME, when you go from down to up, the gender activity contribution, it starts with the micro, which is a bigger contribution, like 60% of women is engaged in the micro segment, but when you go up to small, medium-sized companies, it goes down to 20%, 15%. So general activity in Georgia, in the environment, is low, because it's, if you combine it, 20%. This is one of the challenge. There is no engagement. Why it's so? It's a very important question. And I think that the first one is, there is a, as I say, there's a lack of financial support. So access to finance. And how it's reflected in real life is that, we made a research analysis together with UN Women. And the research shows that the main problem, main challenge for the access to finance, there are two main problems. One problem, which is 75% of people say the access to finance, the key element is not having enough collateral, not having enough guarantees. And in addition, it's also what women say is the conditions of the financial instruments, like interest rate, etc. So these are the key elements which really puts an obstacles in order to support this type of activities. When it comes to the green, actually, that's the green finance, smart green climate finance, actually there is quite a big opportunity because the gender equality and the women's contribution to this sector, I think when we analyzed also with this research, we showed that the women is more sensitive to the climate, the environment, than the man itself. So, and this topic, to putting this topic on table and discussing is the first one which we need to do in order to come up with these solutions. And this is what we are doing in Georgia, to supporting all type of workshops and events in order to put all the challenges on the table in order to come up with these solutions. Maybe later on we can talk about the solutions as well.
Absolutely, because I'm curious to hear more about conditions, but I know you're working in that area, so I'm going to save that question for a little bit later on. But clearly what we're hearing is women are the most vulnerable segment of society in many ways when it comes to the climate crisis, and at the same time they are potential agents of change. They are change makers, and therefore the need to try to draw them in. Let me ask Tariq Al-Gourg to talk a little bit about the gender gap when it comes to skills, because of course that's part of drawing them in order to be fully participating in the sustainable transition. They need those green skills, and as we saw, there is a significant barrier. Where do you see that in the area of education? Where do you see challenges and barriers and gaps that you are trying to fill?
Well, Melinda, when we talk about education and climate, first we need to see what is the intersection between education and climate. If you ask me, those two agendas should be merged, and I'll tell you later on what we have done as Dubai Cares. You see, you can't solve climate issues without educating human beings to solve these issues. And when you educate them, you're talking about school. It starts from the school. But after you educate them, you need to skill them. You need to instill some core competencies into them, from the right values, the right skills, the right knowledge, so they become the youth of the future, so they can save our planet into what the government wants in their future plans. The government is looking into getting the society, getting the economy into some certain sectors to be excelled at. Do we have the right human beings today? Do we have the right youth today? No, we don't. We can't solve the problems. We have to prepare a new generation. Now, I'll take a step down. Who's the most affected into all of this? It's girls and women. Girls are neglected from the schooling days. They've been discriminated. They've been sent on chores. A small example, girls in rural Africa are sent to fetch water. One heat wave gives them a heat stroke, a week or 2 weeks of absenteeism into schools. These are the effects of climate. Now, if we instill these core competencies in them, we will never be able to do it without having a holistic approach towards it. Meaning, we have to have frameworks that has to be embedded within the system and merge these two agendas of climate and education into all of this. I'll give you one small example. STEM. The STEM workforce, girls occupy 30% of STEM workforce. Why? Why is this huge gender gap between male and female when it comes to STEM workforce? I think the inclusion of women and girls into society can come through holistic approach of having the proper ecosystems. What's missing on girls are ecosystems, because men get it by default. women don't get it by default. It has to go through a properly defined system, and we have created a framework, which I will talk later about, a framework that is so inclusive that puts women into the heart of the equation.
Very good. When we hear the messages, essentially it all comes down to fusing those agendas, as Dr. Al-Ghorg just put it, to really create that synergy between gender and climate. And certainly the EU is seeking to do that, both with the European Green Deal and also with the gender equality strategy, which is designed to close the gap that we have been talking about. So can you tell us how you work to build that synergy and where you encounter challenges in doing so? Maria Tiago?
Yes, thank you very much, first, for inviting European Commission, and secondly, for putting the right priorities of the Commission also here in front of us. Let me reply to you. We are not only doing synergies, basically we are mainstreaming gender in all our policies. So this is especially in external relations, we have the EU Action Plan on Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment in External Action, so-called GAP 3 now. It's a third generation that aims really to accelerate the progress on empowering women and safeguarding also the gains that we achieved in the last 25 years since Beijing. But moreover than that, I mean, we are committed basically to have targets. So in our Gender Action Plan, we have 85% of all new actions that need to be gender related. So that means that they must contribute one way or another to the gender equality and women's empowerment, meaning that everything we finance as a EU needs to be gender sensitive, 85%. That means that we also do the cross-cutting focus on the global gateway and all the investments we are doing with the gender focus, but that means that the climate change is one of the priority. So we are really working on the gender climate-related financing agenda. And here, I would like to say, on top of all the grants and budget support and all other tools that we have in our toolbox, we are incentivizing our financial institutions, including EBRD, and they all know very well about that. So we do give the pricing discount, for example, when it comes to the guarantees, when they present the gender-orientated project. Meaning, for example, I can give you the example, in the last call for the EFSD Plus that we got 55 proposals, 50 of them, 91%, were gender sensitive. That means that also our financial institutions, and we are very glad about that, really playing their role when it comes to that. And of course, to try together with us to bring down the barriers. And I fully agree. I mean, there are plenty. I mean, starting with really the structure barriers, you know, we need to turn down the discriminatory laws. We need to work together on inclusive and quality education, because this is the precondition. For example, why we have only 30% of STEM in women, because even if we have a much higher rate in education, they simply don't enter into the workforce in the scientists, mathematics, etc. areas, because, you know, they don't feel that they will be welcome because of stereotypes, of traditional norms. We all know what I'm talking about. So then, of course, we need to be very much gender responsive when it comes to the business reform. So that means that we need to give the privilege treatment to women. And here it comes to the access to finance, as I said, with giving the discount. When it comes to the Gendersmart investment, and here I fully agree. I mean, we need better access to finance to women. And I completely agree with Barbara. I mean, companies with the gender diversity on boards, I mean, whenever they have more women, they are at least in average 50% more likely to reduce the carbon footprint. And also women are much more likely to start the sustainability focused business than men. Again, I'm not going to enter into the questions why, but then it's a good statistic if I can conclude with that. For example, now when we are talking about Green Deal and sustainability, when it comes to the renewable energy, we have more than 30% of women in that area, while with the, the coal and let's say the carbons, I mean, we had less than 20%. So there is a future for green and gender balanced finance future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And let me take that statement about opportunities and go back to Alex to talk about this region again. And studies show, in fact, that there is very considerable potential in South Caucasus, in Georgia, for SMEs, for example, to provide green goods and services to replace expensive imports as this region also seeks to transition to sustainable products and sources, for example, of energy. Yet according to EBRD, the scale of financing does remain insufficient, and also climate awareness tends to be low in the region. So tell us what role ProCredit is playing with its focus also on SMEs to try to change that. You talked about both collateral and conditions as impediments to women. Maybe you can tell us what you're doing there, and also how you're partnering with others.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, when we look at the Georgian environment, the legal framework, regulator, they are all in place. But it's not enough. So we need to do it in all companies, all institutions, intrinsically, internally. The example of ProCredit is that if you take the composition of the women and men, in all financial institutions, you can find that the women is 60–70%, and it is the same with us. But when you go deeper and you see that what is the composition of key decision makers, what is the composition of middle managers, senior managers, top managers, in our case, and pay gap also. These are the crucial key elements in order to empower the woman. And when you look at ProCredit, it's at 50-50 is the middle managers. When you look at the top managers, I'm the only one. The 75% is women also. That's an example. But how you can create this type of environment, the most important thing, at least based on our experience, is to have a work-life balance. Without work-life balance, because as we know, the women takes care of the family mostly, that needs to be taken into consideration in order to create the fair environment, fair opportunities for everybody. That's the first one. The second one, I would say, when we look at this financial accessibility and the challenges we have, especially when we talk about the gender-smart climate finance, we have experience financing green more than 15 years, and we saw what is the statistic, how it looks like, what is the gender's contribution there, how differentiate women with the men of the investing in green. The statistic shows very interesting one. All the portfolio which we have in green, we have a bigger contribution for women than from men. When you look at the quality of the portfolio, which is very interesting, by the way, that, I mean, in general, we have a low problematic loans, but if you look at the NPL or problematic loans of the green portfolio, we have 2–3%. But when you look by the gender, there is no problematic loan in whoever takes loan from whoever owns the business from women's side. So that means the quality of the portfolio and also the vision and the strategy women has in green finance is, I mean, based on our experience in Georgia, is much more stable, long-term vision. This climate sensitivity you can feel. Every investment in green, so when we discuss with all businesses, we can say that there are always two elements. One element is that the taking care of the climate, environment. Another one is the commercial interest, yes? What is the payback period? Usually the businesses are asking us, what is the payback period? And compromise when the man does and compromise for this environment, the women does, is completely different. Because we see that the care, the taking care of the environment, in case of women, it's much better. So they are okay with 7 years payback period, while men say 4 or 5 years is the maximum which I can afford. So this is the very important thing, I think, which needs to be taken into consideration. Also, another part is...
Briefly, if you would, Alex, but essentially what I'm hearing from you is that women tend to take a more sustainable view in two senses.
Exactly.
Both financial sustainability, less risk-taking, but also environmental sustainability.
Exactly.
Just say one word, if you would, about payment schedules, because I know that you say more flexibility on the payback period, but you also have said the conditions of loans sometimes are disadvantageous to women because of timing issues.
Yes.
Could you say one word about that?
Yes, it's very important. Actually, the collaborating with financial institutions, also with the EBRD, with other financial institutions who are really having this topic as a top topic, that gives you also the facilities which is provided by the financial institutions. It gives you the possibility to create the product, the services, loans in a way that it's appropriate to the reality of the life of the women. That means the first one, so the uncollateral amount. So now what we do, we don't ask if there is a green finance, we don't ask for collateral. Because as you know, the collateral is one of the key elements. In Asian country, in Eastern European country, assets are delivered to men. 70% of assets, the statistic shows that it's not inherited by women, it's inherited by men. This is the reality, so we need to face. So there is no fair conditions for men and women, and this is the one thing which we are providing also. If there is a green investment, that you don't need to bring the collateral, or don't need to bring guarantee. The second factor is this interest rates and discounts, we say. And we do it because this is the necessary in order to balance the conditions for women and men. And this is the second point. The third one is also, as I said, there is a, this reality of life when the women takes care of the family members, kids, etc. There is a sometimes needed different type of grace period. So that's the one you need to adapt to the reality of the life and to create the fair environment and fair conditions, because from one side you risk that the less collateral, but from another side you have a strong, stable, long-term vision, a responsible investment, and also responsible decision maker. And that's why we need to encourage and empower women in order to be more active in business. And that's why I think the financial institutions, commercial banks and others need to support in this direction.
So flexible and equitable structuring of loans. Thank you very much, Alex. And as we just heard, Tariq Agour, from Alex, we often do not see a proportionate number of women at the tops of companies. We see them perhaps further down in some of the entry-level and mid-level positions, but not at the top. So I'd be curious to know what strategies and initiatives Dubai Care is pursuing, among other things, to help promote women into leadership roles and also to ensure financial inclusivity for female entrepreneurs.
Well, look, Melinda, if you want to solve the problem, you have to look at it from a systems point of view and from a community's point of view. From a systems point of view, you have to set the right frameworks so you can achieve the system change or the system transformation through policy change. Now, from a community point of view, which is very important, you have to have a societal approach. In this place, when it comes to girls and women, it's a mindset shift. Mm-hmm. In a lot of rural areas and in a lot of countries, these mindset shifts should be done by tribal leaders. And to convince them, you have to set some examples to show them. but you also have to go to, you go to leaders and you go to tribal heads to make that change. Now, we have created a framework. We have launched it. It has been acknowledged by the United Nations, and during the Transforming Education Summit of the UN Secretary General that was launched 2 years ago, we have exhibited that framework and how it works. And the most important thing with that framework is to have government speak to the private sector. Without identifying what are the future jobs that are needed by the private sector based on the country's vision, where the country wants to go and work backwards, as I have mentioned earlier, it's not going to work. Do we have frameworks in place? There are so many frameworks. Are we all merging these frameworks on a high-level collaboration? Finance is a huge issue, but if we work with finance in a silo, are we solving this issue? Are we integrating all these frameworks and solutions together? That's something that we have to look into. So coming back, let me give you one example. In India, what we have done. So when COVID struck, we got approached by one of our partners, the British Asian Trust, and they said, how can we help the Indian youth come out, because now they're unemployed? How can we put them back into the employment? So we worked on a 5-year program, putting them into a skilling program that will skill, upskill, and reskill youth. And the intention is to accredit 55,000 youth to get jobs. Now, so far, we accredited 30 out of the 55,000. 70% of those are girls, by the way. And 90% of those have jobs. What we're looking now with the Indian government at phase 2, when this finishes, is how can we take the success of this program and have a program only towards green skills? Because the Indian government, from today until 2030, they will have every year a growth rate of 30% of green jobs. How can we take the success of this program in India that we have done to fulfill India's mission, but how can we replicate this model elsewhere? And to achieve that with Dubai Care's framework on transforming education that I mentioned, you need to operationalize it as well. So that's why at the COP28, at the Rewired Summit, we launched the Global Education Solutions Accelerator. So we have organizations, governments, UN agencies, development banks coming together to look at solutions and guide country by country on how we can transform their education systems by including business and human capital into it. Now, we partnered with the Aga Khan Foundation to do that. We identified 10 countries, and we're going to transform hopefully 2.1 billion people by 2030 into that. One of the countries is India, but I want to mention that 2 of the countries, which is relevant to Armenia, 2 of the countries are regional countries as well, which is Tajikistan and Kyrgyz Republic. So hopefully we can take this model globally as well.
Thank you very much. And as we know, the overarching title of this annual meeting is Delivering Impact Together, and that explication of the necessity to include so many different partners at different levels is absolutely right on that goal. So thank you. Marietta Yaga, let's take a deeper dive on the EU's vision of a just transition, a just and equitable transition. Can you share some examples of how you are implementing that vision in practice and also seeking to maximize opportunities as we green our economies for women?
Absolutely. We would like to use the just transition basically to advance the gender issues. As every transition, also the green transition will probably not be the most fair when it comes to the gender equality, but that's why we need to take the proactive policies now in order to ensure that this just transition will benefit for women cause and women empowerment, meaning, and I agree, that just access to finance and the climate finance will not be enough. We need to do the enabling environment. I mean, that is what is missing. I mean, as said before, I mean, we need childcare, we need, the proximity of the schools, we need the health system, we need the social protection system. It's the whole ecosystem that needs to be created in order to ensure that the workplace will be equally balanced. And it's absolutely unfair to leave half of the population out. So this is, I can tell you just for the EU, I mean, improving gender equality would contribute to the increase of the GDP in the EU to 9.6% by 2050. And we all know the data of the World Bank, how much that would mean for the rest of the world. So there is a huge economic opportunity, not only in terms of the green transition, because we all know that we need a green transition. I'm sitting in the board of the Loss and Damage Fund, so where we also are trying really to bring the vulnerable and the gender part very high on our agenda because it's needed together with adaptation and mitigation as well. So we have also, just transition with the programs within partnerships within Indonesia and some other partner countries. I can talk about that as well, but the goal is that we need to profit and use the just transition in parallel to enhance the gender empowerment and gender equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And before taking audience questions, I want to go back to Barbara for the last word in this round of discussion about solutions. And one thing that has struck me as I listen to the very enlightening examples that all of you have shared and with which you also began, Barbara, is that awareness is such a key part of this, because we often talk about the gender gap in general terms and so on, but perhaps the awareness of the double role of women, the vulnerability, but also the climate change action part of it, isn't always there. So let me ask you also to please illustrate some concrete initiatives and programs that you are especially excited about in terms of building on this nexus and delivering gender-smart climate action.
Thanks a lot, Melinda. And I have to say, it's really fantastic to hear from one of our key clients, for example, in the region, the business case, actually setting it out. Why does it make sense to invest in women entrepreneurs, particularly with a focus on climate finance, but also from many of our other partners. And this really, I think, goes to show that we've actually come a long way already in terms of delivering together and achieving impact together in the various different ways that we all contribute and across the different sectors. So at EBRD, we integrate gender into our climate investments across all different sectors now. So we have, for example, very successful, very sort of high-profile green cities programs where we work with well over 20 cities or even more across our region to deliver green cities action plans. And what we do as part of that, we actually look at the extent to which we can make sure that women can access the green jobs that come from that. We also make sure that women are part of the decision-making processes when it comes to designing and delivering also those new green technologies. And I think that really is important, that women are really also part and at the table when those decisions are taken. So these Green City programs really now very often have this gender action plans also linked into the Green City action plans. Another area that we focus on is investments in renewables. And for EBRD, this, and that also links into the just transition, sort of divesting from fossil fuel industries into renewable industries. And by doing that, I think we really also open up opportunities in a very fast-growing market where green skills, green jobs are coming up on stream. So in Kazakhstan, for example, we've invested working with our clients directly to starting all the way at the start to develop and shape the educational decisions that young women take in terms of are they going into STEM subjects, which subjects are they going to, do they see role models, are there mentor opportunities, are there actually work-based learning opportunities in vocational training but also in tertiary education, and can they then progress into the labour market, which is, as Marietta, you mentioned, so difficult. It's not just the education, it's also transitioning that into the labour market. So we, as part of our renewable framework investments, we now fully integrate this focus on raising the importance and creating role models, opening up training opportunities, establishing training programs for young women, developing also job brokerage mechanisms that specifically focus on getting young women into renewable jobs, and providing, in a way, the ecosystem that we also talked about for them to be able to do that. And then we also mentioned a lot about the policy level, in a way looking not just at the investment that we can do and from all the investments in the different industries, including SMEs also, but also looking at how do we need to shape labour markets, how do we need to shape labour market policies. In Kazakhstan, we've come together with our clients in the energy sector to remove some labour market restrictions that still existed until a few years ago now, that prevented women from simply performing certain types of jobs, including in the energy sector. But we also work with our clients to shape national skills standards, occupational standards, to really make sure that young women and young people generally who go through the education system have the right skills in order to progress in that area. So it's about the investments, it's about making that investment case, but it's also about shaping the broader ecosystem.
And seeing that holistic picture, as you called it, Tariq Al-Ghurd. I want to go to live questions in just a moment, but I am going to just take two very specific questions that have come in online quickly, I hope. One of them goes to you, Dr. Tariq Al-Ghurd. Can you share more about your social investment program in Senegal involving trainings on climate and green skilling and female entrepreneurship?
Why Senegal?
I don't know.
In Senegal, we have a successful program, which is a multilingual program, because in rural areas and in the majority of the country, they don't speak French. They speak their native language, and the government's language is French. So I don't think this is related to that. But the person who has put this question is a very smart person, because we're cooking something up in Senegal which is reflected to this. And we are teaming up with the WFP and Crédit Agricole Bank through the School Meals Coalition of the WFP, which we are founding
World
members
Food
as
Program,
well.
just in case people... Yeah.
Okay, sorry. What we're doing there is we are creating a full system on how we can use the farmers to seed what is needed into school feeding through the Ministry of Education, and they get their payments through the Ministry of Education, and erect a factory that we can get all the nationals working in that factory, so that's employment, have centralized kitchen, fortifying the food that will go into these schools, and this will, so the core will be funded, the operation will be funded by the WFP, but Crédit Agricole is going to put a social impact bond where they will get from their investors funding to go into that. So the fund looks 50-50. 50% from grant givers, that's one way to subsidize the coupon, and 50% will be from actual investors, who the fund will give a low coupon, but because we are subsidizing it, it will give them a high rate coupon. And who will be into the center of this? It's girls and women, and it will be a climate-friendly action as well.
And who will monitor that the school meal will go to the last girl in the village? What will be the system?
Pardon?
How the monitoring system will then work, that you will be sure that the Ministry of Education or the senior school master will deliver this final meal.
So Crédit Agricole, just right now, as we speak, they finished the feasibility study And now we're putting everything into place with the Senegalese government. So M&E is a huge component of this. I won't have an answer for now. We haven't finalized, but hopefully we will be launching it by end of the year. And M&E is the solution to all of this. Without tracking on all these progress, it will not happen.
Yeah. Very interesting. And essentially, that's a nutritional intervention to benefit inclusion. And I have another question from the audience, which in a way gets at something similar. Two key issues that perpetuate gender disparity are reproductive health and child care. How can we invest better in these? What will be the implications if we don't? Who would like to take a shot at that? Barbara.
So I'm happy to talk about the care aspect in particular. So indeed, investing in care and in a very effective care economy is a key aspect of enabling women to enter the labour market, stay within the labour market, including on the green side. So what we do is a number of things. One is we work with our large corporate clients to look at actually the offer in terms of care provision that they make as a corporation, whether that is offering childcare vouchers or having care facilities on site or any other facilities and mechanisms that they can do. So we support them, we build their capacity, we help them do that. We also invest in municipal level childcare provision to enhance the locally available childcare, that it is affordable, that it is high quality. And then very importantly at the policy level, again coming back to that ecosystem, we actually bring our clients and employers more generally in Turkey, for example, but also in other countries, to look at what are the national level childcare policies that employers have to meet, and do they actually work? Are they fit for purpose, or is it that employers pay lip service because actually the mechanisms are not workable? So we're trying to improve national level policies in relation to offering childcare for employers or for employees by employers as well. So it's again, I think, setting up that ecosystem and seeing what we can do together here is very important.
Mariette, you wanted to add?
As I mentioned before, for me, the whole health part is part of ecosystem, including the sexual and reproductive health and rights that we put as a part of our action. And for example, we just put together, I can give you the example, a very huge guarantee agreement together with our European Bank in partnership with the Gates Foundation on the Human Development Accelerator, and it's from our budget 750 million guarantee capacity, where we are going to address those issues as well with a clear, I would say, aim that we address gender equality and make progress when it comes to that. Because I fully agree not only that correlation is there, but for example, we see correlation between the climate and the child marriages. Whenever we have droughts, I mean, the child marriages are going up. Yeah. So, I mean, we can discuss these issues, for hours, but clearly, I mean, it's all interrelated, and we need a holistic and integrated approach, as we said before.
And by the way, we don't have time to discuss this subject, but certainly technology has a big role to play, both in the tracking that you talked about, Tariq El-Gorg, but also women's health in underserved communities. Technology is proving to be very effective in leapfrogging some of the difficulties. But let us focus on another question that came in online, and this one I think also for Alex. You mentioned that you try to have a collateral-free approach with many women, and also you do not require guarantors in this case. What approaches are used instead to manage risk?
Yeah, there are several facilities for it, so which is coming usually from European financial institutions, and we have a guarantee fund facilities which shares the risk with the commercial bank. That means that we don't require, but this risk is shared with financial institutions. This is the one very important aspect. The second one, as I say, that there is a low problematic loans, which already gives you the encouragement to do so. because the probability of default in future is less than in standard cases. So that's why these two elements placed together, and I think that's the main cause of it.
But clearly also the role then of international partners in helping de-risk, very important there. Let me go to questions in the room. Who has a question for us? I have one here. Go ahead. And do share who you are if you like.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Hello, Andrea from Reconstruction Consulting, Italy. A question to Barbara, if it's possible. What is, in your opinion, the role of women in emerging new technologies such as hydrogen, where everyone starts from scratch, let's say? And could they be a kind of Trojan horse to allow more women enter into traditionally difficult sectors, such as mining or ports and maritime decarbonization? Thank you.
Great. Go ahead. Thanks.
So, I hope you can hear me. So you mentioned mining, hydrogen. I think, particularly when it comes to mining, you know, if jobs are safe for men to perform, then it should be safe for women to perform as well. So I think empowering women to access those jobs, access those skills, particularly also in new technologies such as hydrogen and others. These are well-paid jobs. These are growing industries. So I think it's very important to make sure that women have access to those jobs, are empowered, encouraged to take on those roles, and in a way are enabled to do that. And you know, we support that through engagement directly with our clients.
Say something to this. Okay. Thank you very much. Who else has a question for the panel? Don't be shy.
Maybe I can add that, for example, in Europe, by 2030, if I remember correctly, there will be 3.5 million more jobs when it comes to renewables. So clearly, with the right incentives, especially when it comes to the new technologies, because, let's say, innovation and good ideas are not reserved only for half of the mankind, I would say, and the population. And therefore, I would say with a good education and basically also guiding the girls and women into the the direction, I think that we can increase the workforce when it comes to women in hydrogen, renewable energy, etc., etc. But I think the main problem is not only the percentage, it's really the percentage of women in leadership that will be able to decide on the directions where the future of the green transition is going. Thank you very much.
Melinda, can I add just
Please?
a broad point here? You see, a girl that does not get educated will eventually grow up. If she gets married, I don't think she will put much attention whether their children, I'm talking about developing countries and rural areas, whether their children should get educated because she hasn't witnessed the power of education. Hence, the children will follow her steps. But an educated girl, she grows up, gets married, gets a decent job, gets children. She will ensure that all her children will get education so they can take her footsteps. My point here is, as everyone says that if you educate a girl, you educate a nation, I say if you educate a girl, you educate the planet, and all you need is just one generation. Us as human beings, if we can educate as much as we can, the utmost number of girls in the world, we will be creating a lot of solutions and we will be eliminating a lot of obstacles. If you take girls and youth population in the world, those are 75% of the world population. And if you take climate issues, if we combine them together, we can solve 75% to 90% of the problems if we only focus on climate, youth, and girls.
Well, those are wonderful closing words for our panel, but Marietta, you want to...
No, I just want to say I fully agree, and that's why I'm very proud that we now crossed 13% of our budget for education. And really, we can't agree more. And on this...
Thank you.
I would conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Absolute foundation of creating that nexus between gender and climate action, and also for building resilience. So thank you so much to all of you for this wonderfully thought-provoking and interesting debate. And thank you to everybody in the audience for your attention and your contributions. And I would also like to thank our technical team. Many of them are sitting back there in the darkness, and also our microphone bearers for your participation in making this a wonderfully interesting and lively session. So I wish everybody a good day. Let's give our panel a very warm round of applause, please.
Thank you.